Hello and welcome to the Week 14 Brit Iron NFL preview episode. I'm your host James, and as ever, I'm joined by Sam and Matt. Now, before we get into things, we should give a quick shout out to UKTouchdown.com. It is a great source of signed NFL and college memorabilia in the UK, and everything is 100% legit.
Might be a nice time to check it out as well. Christmas approaching.
Yeah.
Get that loved one in your life a Christmas present, James. If you wanted to get me anything nice, signed,
Oh, who says it'll be you?
Fully certified as well.
Fully certified, yes.
Exactly.
It's got all the certifications.
Perfect for that loved one in your life.
He keeps passionate about this, so I'm getting a bit worried now.
Yeah, I know. He's,
Please buy me something.
We'll see what happens, mate. So am I. Hold on a minute.
That's been keeping all the revenue. I wish.
Check out the UKTouchdown.com. You will not regret it. Right, boys. Let's just jump straight into the previews, I think. Week 14. No teams on bye this week, which is great to see. So we can get a full slate of games. Full 16-game slate. And let's kick it off with Thursday Night Football. It sees the Patriots going to play the Rams. Now, the Rams are favourites going to this game at minus 6.5. And the under-over is set at 45.5 as well.
I'm so wanting to talk about this game. I know you've got a question on the tip of your tongue there, James, so ask it. I'm just so excited.
Well, you jump in first.
Right.
Say your piece, and then we'll ignore it and continue.
Yeah, fair enough. It's pretty standard. No, the thing that makes me so interested by this game is the Patriots and the way in which they won against the Chargers. Now, there's all sorts of things around the Chargers and the way the Chargers played and some of the things that have come out from the Chargers kind of coaching staff and stuff in the last week, which we'll deal with when we get to the Chargers. But the Patriots, it is very rare in the NFL that you see a game that plays out in that way. Even in games where you see the Chiefs go and beat the Jets or something, it's very rare that you see an NFL team go out against another NFL team and just beat the brakes off them in every single phase of the game. I mean, they won on special teams, they won on offense, they won on defense. They were just they were the bigger team, the faster team. They were just so emphatically better, and it's so rare that you see that it's the first time this season that I've gone, that's a Belichick Patriots team. I mean, it felt like it was a Brady team again, like they had that kind of effort. And I mean, all of this was done with, I think Cam Newton threw for less than 100 yards in a game that they won 45-0. This is Belichick football, a team that's starting to play well in December, and a team that's still got a shot at the playoffs with some of the other teams in the AFC that are going to be vying for that wildcard spot, dropping games here and there. The Patriots are sneaking up, and I find this such an interesting game because the Rams, on the flip side, have maybe not been as good as I'd like them to see approaching December.
Oh, you took the question from my mouth there. It was going to be, can the Patriots set up a late season playoff push? However, you sort of answered it there.
So, if they play like that. Matt,
do you reckon they could get that playoff spot?
I do not know how to feel about this Patriots team. We've seen it. We've had a couple wins now within that sort of last month where you think, here we go, it's Belichick, it's late season Patriots. And then they don't follow it up with anything. And I think this Chargers team isn't really going anywhere. What were the reports that before the game they got told the playoff push is over? So essentially just doesn't matter. Yeah. Essentially the head coach was like, we ain't playing for anything. So the player said, right, well, we ain't playing for anything then.
And this was before
quite literally
they mathematically eliminated as well, I think. Was it? Or were they eliminated last week? I think it was before. I think they were eliminated after this game mathematically.
We'll have to check that
well, we'll have to have a look. But so I don't know what to think on the side of the Patriots. Whereas on the Rams, I still like what I see from them. I think they're still going to be there. They're going to be playing the big games where it matters. It's just they've got that killer instinct sometimes to get it done. I think, and that's what you see. Maybe it's if we say it for Goff, you know in the first two drives what you're getting from him. Yeah. I think that just spreads through the whole team to an extent, and I think they need, if they're at their best, they can play pretty much any team in this league and stand a chance. Whereas this Patriots team, I feel like them at their best, maybe that's what we saw. To me, I didn't think Brady football. It was more they're playing to what this offense can do now. Run it with that plethora of running backs. don't force Cam to make any stupid throws and say, use your legs. And they played to the strengths of the team. The defense stepped up. But then again, was it just this Chargers offense having a down day? I think I'm going to go with the Rams for this game, and I think even with that spread, I think they should take it by a touchdown. I think for me, this is a Rams team that they're so close, they want to get there, whereas the Patriots, they're not what they once were, and we're yet to see them play well and come back and play well the next week.
Yeah, that's true.
They might, and this is December Patriots. We said it last week.
Anything.
You never know.
Right? Yeah.
But I think I'm just betting logically on this, and I'll be going Rams on that spread, and expecting them to continue on betting the better team.
Yeah, I think the Rams have got to do it on the ground for this game for me, because I think their defense will step up. I've got it here. They've got the third fewest passing yards per game, and they've also had 12 interceptions, 36 sacks, which is pretty impressive, considering as well that Cam Newton's thrown 9 interceptions this year. Yeah. So it does play into their hands in the defense. But New England also have quite a good pass defense as well, statistically. The 63.2% catch rate is what they've allowed, so it's pretty mean. So if the Rams are going to get it done, I think it's more going to be on the ground side of things. But that spread, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
That many points against a Belichick team, I struggle to take that kind of line against. So I think the Rams win it. I'd be taking the money line quite comfortably. But there is just a niggling thing in me that I just don't want to take that number of points against a Belichick team. Yeah,
no, I'm in agreement as well.
Especially after they've just won a week in such a
but not against a good team. That was arguably the first game that Justin Herbert's looked like a rookie.
Yeah,
I would say.
Chargers are a weird one because they look close in a lot of games this season. We'll come on to the Chargers in a bit anyway, but I don't know. I think I'm with Sam. I think that spread's just a bit. It's uncomfortable for me to comfortably bet on it. So for that reason, I'm with you on this one as well, Sam. But let's shift things on to Sunday. We've got a 6 p.m. matchup between the Texans and the Bears. This is the Texans going as -2 favourites on this one. The Bears are continuing to slide. Do we reckon that continues against the Texans?
No, I don't think so with this Texans team. They're just a bit adrift. They can't tank for anything. There's no obvious quick rebuild there. As much as has been said with Deshaun Watson, you'd think there's always a chance, and there is always a chance for this Texans team. But the receiver core has been gutted. What's going on with Cooks? A concussion. We've seen this so often in his career. Is he going to be able to play? This is a Bears defense you can't really give too many advantages to as it is, just because the people there, they're good enough that if you give them advantages, they'll all play to their ceiling. There's been times this year where they definitely haven't, but I see them walking over this Texans offense at points. I think Deshaun Watson will still do what he does. He'll have at least 2 good quarters of football that makes it a close game. But the Bears, I don't think, need to do anything special to win this. For me. It's not a game I'm watching. I don't want to even see any of this game.
The way that I look at this is I think Trubisky is the starter on that. I think Trubisky is the best quarterback on that roster, right? Yep. And Trubisky is going to start. And that just shows you how dire their quarterback situation is, because he is not an NFL starting quarterback. He just isn't at this point. We know this. Now, there have been a couple of weeks back-to-back now where David Montgomery, their running back, the guy that when he came into the league, he wasn't drafted crazy high, but people thought maybe he could do it. And he's starting to put it together. He's getting back-to-back. He's getting touchdowns. He's getting yards. He's being relatively efficient with the ball, which has been one of his bigger issues since he came into the league. And even with it getting a back just working into it like that, you see the Bears just fall apart. I mean, they were up 2 scores against the Lions at the weekend, and they just fumbled it away because they come out in the second half and the offense can't do anything because they can't throw the ball at all. Yeah. Like, you've got Mitch Trubisky out there who, he can make the odd thing happen when he rolls outside of the pocket, but he can't throw for toffee inside of the pocket. He's not accurate. They can't get anything going. And when you're saying that with a running game, because I'm not convinced that Montgomery he's not consistent. I'm not convinced that he comes out and does that again next week. So I just don't think they're gonna be able to get this going. And with David Johnson coming back, David Johnson's not been terrible this year. He's just done David Johnson things, which is basically there's a couple. He scores touchdowns. He doesn't get loads of carries, but he's relatively efficient with them. He's just injured all the time, so he's not on the field. But getting him back, they kind of work him into the offense a bit more. I think this comes down. This is a game that is literally just going to come down to who has more talent on the field. because I think they're two mid to low end teams, and I think the offensive talent on the Texans side will be enough to drag them through, because I think the Bears' offense is that bad.
I mean, you're probably right, but let's not forget that Houston has the second worst rush defense in the league.
Yep,
100,
exactly.
150 yards on average a game, along with most running back yards per carry at 5.2. So it's set up for David Montgomery to have a big game, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And it's hard for me to back the Bears at this point because they've been terrible recently. I don't think anyone can argue against that. And they're on this,
Not at all.
they're on this slide, which we all sort of predicted early on that would happen after their amazing, what was this, 5-0, whatever it is, start to the season.
Bears have gone into hibernation, I think, at this point early.
That's a great way of putting it, man. I do like that. But yeah, I think David Montgomery will have a big game. But I think you're right. I think the Texans have a bit more about them. They've got what it takes. They're on the up in comparison to the Bears. So I think I'm taking the Texans. Well, -2 as well. I mean, it's a small spread.
It's pretty much a lean at that point.
Yeah, exactly. It's less than a field goal. It's a safety at this point.
Yeah. Unless you get one of your
1 point safeties. 1 point safety is coming. I can feel it in my fingers.
Limbs if that ever happens.
Mate, I don't think it's ever been close. But yeah, if a 1 point safety happens, then good lord, this would be a brilliant game to watch. But yeah, I think I'm siding with you as well. Sam on that one. Texans definitely for me. Which makes it 2 in a row that we've agreed.
I'll take the minorities here. I'll take the Rams and Bears. The Pats and Texans.
I mean, someone's got to.
There's only one good unit out of the 4 in this team between offense and defense, and that's the Bears' defense. So that's what I'm leaning with.
I still think the Texans' offense is capable.
Yeah.
You can't lean on David Johnson. He's made of glass. Like
Yeah,
the thing is, if you try to give him a workload against his Bears' defense,
That's true.
I will be shocked if he gets a heavy usage and gets through this game not injured again. I'll be shocked personally, just because of what we've seen in the past. But hey, I'll happily be the odd one out again.
It works out for you if it comes in.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Let's move it on. Let's talk about the Broncos going to play the Panthers. Very low under overset for this game. 47.5, I think. Do we believe that?
Yawn of a game.
So you believe it? You believe it'll be under?
Really?
Boring game. I'm not intrigued by this game. It's a game that's got very little. Me and Matt were talking about this yesterday. I think we were kind of talking about how football. We're getting to the real business end of the season, and games are going to start having real playoff. It's not like we've lost. We can drop a game here. We'll pick it up at the end of the season. It's your playoff crunch time now, and all those teams in and around the wild card spot. You're starting to get to the point that the head coaches are going to be in the locker rooms going, right, it's the playoffs, because if we lose this week, we're out, and you've got to really fight. And these are two teams that aren't making the playoffs. These are two teams that are they're not so terrible that they're going to be in complete rebuild, and there's that much interesting to talk through. I'm just not interested by this game, and I think it's going to be a low scoring game because I'm not intrigued by either offense. I just really am not. I don't think either offense is really going to be able to get the ball moving. Obviously, we've seen the Panthers do it, but they've just been so inconsistent.
I think for me, this is a game that will either be exactly what you're saying, like it starts, and the next thing you see on Red Zone is just like the final play sort of thing before the half, and just the occasional, if nothing else is happening, let's check in. Or I think there's potential for some sneaky shootout value here. That this is going to become one of those games where the young Panthers defense has a bad day. Drew Lock comes out and just does what he can do that we've seen, but turns the ball over enough that it keeps the Panthers coming back. And we've seen the Panthers offense can put up points. Yeah. Bridgewater can get it done, and the Broncos defense isn't exactly setting the world alight. Yeah. Which I think it could be what you're saying of just two offenses both misfiring. Panthers defense has a good day and Broncos defense plays up. Or the complete opposite. I don't think this will be a middle of the pack. I think this is either one that comes in under potentially something like 30, 35 points or clears the 50 mark for me. Wow. It's one or the other, I think.
It's all or nothing at this point, isn't it?
Like, I'm not going to bet near that over for that reason. Yeah, I'm not putting any money near this game. I'm just intrigued to see how it plays out because it's it's one of those games as well where they're both at 4-8. They're not getting one of the great picks. They're not getting one of the guys you talk about right up there in that top 5 potentially sort of region. But one of these teams potentially lose out the season or lose a few more. You're getting players that are still you can build a franchise on. You're getting those less hyped up guys that are just solid football players that can help with a few bits around them to change your franchise. So there's that interesting thing for me to watch when you get into this middle of the pack of are there any subtle tanks happening? Because there's a guy they have at maybe 8. That kind of thing, where they're thinking around that region, they're like, hang on.
And what will be interesting as well is that the Broncos are a team that might well be in the quarterback discussion coming up in the next year or two. I think.
Not yet. Not this year.
I
think John Elway is. John Elway's going to be on the hot seat a little bit here because he did very well early in his career, won that Super Bowl with Manning, and ever since then they've not been able to find the quarterback. He's drafted kind of his John Elway's very very much got a style of quarterback, big, strong, tall, fire kind of gunslinger guys, and he's been terrible at drafting them. And they didn't put massive kind of draft capital into Locke, so they're not sold on him. They can move on from him with relatively no. It's not like you put a number 1 overall pick into him. And I think the longer this goes on, the more pressure there will be on Vic Fangio and John Elway. And there's a good chance I think Vic Fangio could be the next guy gone. And once Vic Fangio's gone,
Really?
Drew Lock, I'm not as sold on Drew Lock just because what he's done this season has not impressed me at all.
And you were high on him.
And I was
coming
really
into the season,
hard. But it's just I've not seen the things I want to see from him. I think he's too careless with the ball.
Okay.
I think for right now they've drafted a few guys and at that quarterback spot and haven't hit. But I think maybe this time they'll think, right, let's not change the guy that we're putting out there at quarterback.
Yeah.
Let's change what we're putting around them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Build the O-line, sort of give Locke a chance.
Mm.
Because I think as much as, they're not, because they locked into him.
Oui.
Like, I feel like for now, he's been without his main receiver. Defense has lost pieces. This team is not the team we were talking about in pre-season, but not really out of their own fault at points. They were early doors. It seemed like every game there was a Broncos player down. So I think they're almost going to kind of forget this season, reload with a bit more talent in the off-season, come back next year, and that's Locke's interview. That's Fangio's interview. That's their time to say, all right, now go out and do it.
Yeah.
And also as well, Cortland Sutton comes back healthy. Prove you're the guy. Prove you're the number 1. There's all now these young guys that come up behind him. Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy's going to be around there. Can you stay ahead of them? So I think for me, this isn't a big make or break. They're going to kind of burn it down, start again at all yet. I think they're going to give it a year of this functioning fully. See what they've actually got and then start again. Because it is literally, less than 6 months ago we were saying sneaky playoff potential in these Broncos.
Maybe, but I think...
And it wasn't just like, that was a consensus opinion.
I still think if you've got someone like Trey Lance staring, if you're picking at 10 and you've got Trey Lance staring you down,
year,
or you've got Zach Wilson staring you down, it's the kind of thing that if you think there's a chance that they're the guy, they might pull the trigger.
I think, give them, like Matt's saying, give them more time. I think they'll regret it. Otherwise, is my opinion. Maybe 1 more year, I think, definitely. And,
I think,
and then reevaluate after that, I think, after next year. But
if they're 4-8 next December, then is when this conversation happens. I think this is premature.
Yeah, when they've had a bit more time to get everyone back and get those pieces healthy again, like you said. But just back to this game, I didn't mention that the spread is at -4 in favour of the Panthers. Now, I'm taking that for 2 reasons. Ooh. CMC, probably going to be back.
Yep, big factor.
And Denver, worst rush defence in the league.
I mean, even if CMC's not fully functioning, Davis looks good.
Or one of the worst rush defences, sorry. But I think
I would lean, if I'm putting some money on that, I would go towards that Panthers. I'm not fully confident in it, but I think I prefer that to some other games to be putting my money on.
Yeah.
Like Texans Bears.
I wouldn't be sticking that. This is one that I would not be putting in an ACCA though. Or if you're putting that in an ACCA, you're putting it as your risky one in an ACCA, just because I think that is one that could go either way. And with it being at 4 as well, not quite being that field goal, you're just opening it up.
Fresh off a bye though, for this Panthers team. Time to prepare that young defense actually.
Yeah.
They don't have to learn it all so quick. Maybe that plays into it.
I think there's a lot going from this week, and it all helped by the fact that CMC is likely to be back, in my opinion. So
fingers crossed for him. It'd be good to see him back in the field.
It will be. It's been a long time coming, definitely, and it's been talked about for a long time as well. So it would be definitely good to see. But let's slide things on, and let's talk about the Cowboys going to play the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cowboys are favourites into this one, -3.5. I mean, the NFC is sliding out of grip for them. NFC East is sliding out of grip.
Well, it could still swing. It's only a couple games out.
It's 2 games, isn't it?
Game to play tomorrow night.
Yeah, you don't really want to say at this point in the NFC East that it's gone because, 4 weeks ago you just said that the Giants were out and now we're sitting top of the division. And
Also note, Cowboys are playing tonight as we're recording.
They're
playing against the Ravens.
That worries
Week 13.
me a little bit for this game, I think, just because. So like kind of having all the issues around this COVID game and then having a short week, that does worry me a little bit. But I'm gonna take the Cowboys on this one against the Bengals just because I think the quarterback situation's a bit better. The Bengals have really struggled to pass the ball, and I think, to be honest as well, the Cowboys defense has been looking better than the absolute just like dumpster fire that it was for the first 7 weeks of the year. So they have started to look better. So I will take the Cowboys in this one, but again, this is one that I don't necessarily know if I like that 3.5 spread because I think this could come down to a field goal.
I'm not as worried as well about the short week factor because last time played was Thanksgiving. They've had a long break, so they've almost had a field goal. They've almost had a bye week. They've had a lot of time to prepare now, and I think sometimes maybe it's just better for teams. Just come in back to back 2 quick games. You have time to prepare for it. You feel rested up, and just kind of get in a zone and say, right, we're going to the Bengals or Ravens, and then we're going to the Bengals. Just sort of 2 quick games, one very differing opponents, but 2 that are almost on a down as well. And this is a Cowboys team saying, you know what? Still in this 2-game swing. If they win, they beat the Ravens. Weirder things have happened.
As opposed to
1 game off.
Team that are out. So
Exactly.
The Bengals got nothing to play for. The Cowboys do have a spot in the playoffs that they could realistically still fight for. So I think I agree with Matt. Just the fact that they've got a bit more of a fire burning underneath them suggests to me that they probably will win, but I still don't like that spread.
Yeah, it seems high. It seems very high for what it is. I think I'm with you on that one as well.
I'm taking it.
Wow.
They've had
This
time to prepare, is what I mean. And this is a time with this Cowboys offense mainly. They haven't had, outside of since Dak went down, they have not had a good amount of time to have a starter in there getting ready for this.
Yeah.
Whereas suddenly you've got the guy that's played the last game more than a week, getting ready, getting prepared for this, getting a game plan set up, getting his chemistry going with his receivers, with Zeke, with the O-line, getting everything in place. Finally, this probably feels like it's not that alien factor to it when they get out there of, I just don't know quite, we're not quite on the same page. Especially someone like Dalton, so experienced, he can probably build that quite well with these guys, and they're talented guys he's building it with. So for me, I think they take this by a touchdown. Like coming into this, if you told me this spread was 6, I'd be happy with it.
Spicy takes on the spreads.
The Bengals are nothing now without Burrow. Like this year, they've got nothing to play for.
I still think the Bengals have got. I think the culture that Joe Burrow and that new staff have, and the style that team has, it feels like a team that is proud, and they're like, we haven't played great football this year, but up until the point that Joe Burrow went down, we were in every game we played. And up until that point, we are one guy away that you would not... Before Burrow went down, there is not a single week that I would have gone, Bengals definitely losing this week.
No, obviously.
Because he was keeping them in
that's not the argument, I don't think.
But it happened 9 times.
Just one player going down. I think the rest of the team, they still have the culture there that they'll put up a fight. And I don't think the Cowboys are good enough that they'll just steamroller them like a good team would. You know, if that makes sense.
For me, that fight's not enough to take over a playoff ambition, is what I'm saying. Playoff outweighs culture for me.
We'll see on Sunday.
So
We'll have to
We'll
wait.
have to wait and see. We certainly will. And that brings us very nicely onto our next game we're going to talk about, and that is the Chiefs going to Miami to play the Dolphins. This is actually quite a tempting game to watch. I think this will be a very good game of football. Very interesting.
Playoff
but
preview.
7 of the Chiefs' last 12 games have been decided by single-digit margins, which is a stat when I saw it earlier. I was blown away by a little bit. Do you reckon that continues with this game? Bearing in mind that the Chiefs are favourites on the spread at -7.5.
They've played worse defences and not covered spreads. Yeah, and I mean, given the way the Miami defence played at the weekend, I mean, you got Carl Vanoy, who was he was all over the place, multiple sacks. They played a really good defensive game of football last weekend. And when you're hitting that stride, coming in against the Chiefs, you've got to be playing your best defensive football to play the Chiefs. Having said that, in some of the Chiefs games, where they haven't covered, it's almost felt like, they didn't cover. It's like that Bucks game. They only won by 3 points, but they were like so clearly the better team for that game. And I think that it was one of those games where you go, right, the score doesn't necessarily represent what the product that was on the field. So I think the Chiefs have definitely got it in them. But I really like this Miami defense, so I would actually take the Miami on the spread here.
I'm taking Miami on the spread.
I really love that defense.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I'm not betting on this game, I don't think.
Oh,
just for me, because I'm not convinced that this Dolphins offense can keep up. I don't think this Dolphins defense can do enough. I don't think they keep, let's say, the Chiefs below 30. I'd be surprised. For me, it's Pat Mahomes. I'm not. But this Chiefs offense can put up points. Even the game that lost against the Raiders, they put up points on anyone.
Yeah.
My problem is with that 7.5. I just don't think this Dolphins offense keeps up. All their wins at the moment, their games at the moment, they don't score a lot of points.
Yeah.
They've just managed to get away with it because they're not really against offenses with much firepower. Whereas the Chiefs, you can't get more firepower.
Yeah, that is true.
I think the Dolphins are in this and it feels competitive and it is less than 10 is the difference. But I don't know. I'm not confident enough in it.
For me, it depends on if the Dolphins can get an early lead, because the game script then favour them to run
potentially.
the ball.
That's the only way. I think that's the only way.
Starting for the one thing that he has done just so well coming in as a rookie is he does not turn the ball over, which is one of the. I mean, forget just Mahomes. Any of the best quarterbacks going in 50 years ago, it will be the same in 50 years' time. How do you stop the best quarterback in the league from beating you? Don't give him the ball.
Yeah.
So if they can control the ball, I think the defense is good enough to get a couple of stops in the right place. But then again, on the flip side, Mahomes doesn't turn the ball over. I think he's over either. I think he's thrown 2 picks this season. So it's going to be an uphill battle for them. Yeah. But I think that 7.5 spread is very large. And I think as well, the Chiefs they don't feel like an overly flashy team. Like,
no, that's true.
If they get up 5 points, they will happily run the ball, run the clock down, and they're not going for people's throats. They're just they're going, look, we're going to get out of here with a win. We're going to get that 1 seed locked up, and we'll see you in January. Because for them, that's what counts.
Oh no, definitely. Like, I think I won't be shocked if this covers.
Yeah,
I just have a gut feeling that I'm not confident enough to put it in for me.
Yeah,
sometimes it'd be like that. Sometimes it's the way the cookie crumbles. But easy to forget as well, Chiefs are the 6th worst against the rush as well.
Yeah.
So potentially big game for Myles Gaskin. It's one to watch. If the game script allows it.
On there, as long as Mahomes doesn't just light them up.
Well, this is what I was thinking. If they get up early,
this game is all about the game script.
100%.
It's mad. Like,
that's what I was saying about the Dolphins get up early. They could just walk it, and at that point, that spread is out of reach. So,
well, it'll be interesting to see. Is Xavier Howard? Has he been reprimanded? Because did he get ejected?
I believe it was fines.
Is it just?
This is just going off someone I saw on Instagram. Very quickly scrolling through.
I'm just. This literally just sprung to mind after that game at the weekend with multiple ejections. Xavier Howard's the kind of guy who you can't afford to miss. I mean, 8 picks in a year that's career year. Yeah. That is putting himself in a defensive player of the year kind of conversation for some people. And losing a player of that caliber who's playing at that level can be a massive hit for your defense. So, I mean, I don't know if he is. I know he was ejected.
I think that would have been. Just the fact we haven't seen that as big news.
Yeah.
I don't. As of recording this, I don't think they have done yet.
I'd love to see him out there.
Because this is that first one has that real playoff preview feel, but it's also that real test of, all right, Dolphins, you've put yourself in a spot now where this is the teams you got to beat.
Yeah, exactly.
This is your next step now.
Go out and do it.
Let's give it a try.
What game it could be? This is where it's going to be like a 7-all sort of blockbuster on a tie.
I mean, if they do that, then the Dolphins are maybe more legit than we thought. If they can hold Mahomes to single-digit points, I'll be impressed.
Granted, yes. But let's move on and let's talk about the Titans going to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. The Titans are minus 8.5 favourites going to this game. I mean, have the Jags just become a free win at this point, in your opinion? I mean,
the last 11 games they've been.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, the big thing with this Titans team is it's a bad loss to the Browns. Blown out early. Tried to do what they've done against other teams and get that comeback, but when you're down, near 40 points, it's too much. Like, they let it slip way too far. But the interesting stat for this game is, I think, in 7 of 12, I believe it's around that, Titans have scored 30 or more points. Jags in around 6 of 12, I think it was, have allowed 30 or more. This Titans, I think they're just going to run it up because as well, when they get ahead, who can they give the ball to? Derrick Henry, just to run and run.
It's a perfect matchup. Perfect matchup.
And he's going to come back angry. I mean, he got the Browns did an absolutely outstanding job of kind of doing exactly what we said their win condition was going to be last week, which is run the ball, stop Derrick Henry, play smart football, and give Baker time. And that's exactly what they did. And all of the issues the Titans had came from that D-line and the fact that, I think it was in the third quarter, Derrick Henry had like 10 attempts for 29 yards.
And a fumble. That's the big thing you don't see normally.
Which is, when you're halfway through a game, you're down 20 points, and you are a team that runs the ball, and the guy who is your thing can't get it going, then you're going to struggle. But I don't think they're going to struggle against this Jags team, realistically. No. They're not going to have the answer for Derrick Henry. I'm still a bit iffy on the 8.5, just because I
think Glennon can...
It's just the way that the Jags showed at times last week. And I feel like this is a game that would have a garbage time. Titans just giving it up and winning by 7 rather than 8.5. Like, this is not me saying I think the Jags can compete. It's just 8.5 seems like there could be a garbage time in it.
Last time they played as well, the Jags only lost by 3 points. Yeah. That was early in the season. However, different things have happened. Times have changed, Titans still aren't great against the pass. 5th worst.
But Glenn ain't exactly great at passing the ball.
So matter.
That first touchdown, that deflection, that's a 1 in a million.
Yeah.
I think they need that sort of luck to cover.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm probably not putting the money on it. Might look for something adjusted so you can get it under a touchdown at 6.5. Yeah. Obviously, isn't as great for your odds, but I think just makes that much more likely to cover in an ACCA.
I think that's just an interesting one in terms of betting in general. If I love a team to cover the spread, I tend not to take spreads between 7 and 12 because if you've got a spread at 12, that's usually meaning that everyone's just so confident this team is going to hammer that team. Anything below kind of that 10 mark, between 10 and 6.5, that just has something going wrong written all over it to me.
Very true.
It's like look, if Vegas thinks they're going to win, if the line's at about 6.5, that means then it's probably the kind of game that we're all sat here going, right, about a touchdown in it. But 8.5, that's a game that we're going, look, they should comfortably win by a touchdown, but there could be any kind of garbage time because they could be up 14 with 2 minutes on the clock, they give the ball over, and the other team are just kind of seeing what they've got, and they run out a garbage time touchdown before a knee, and it just ruins you. Or you get an Eagles-like scenario where you're not going to lose, but the other team's going downfield to try and regain some dignity or something, which I just...
The only thing that gives you a little bit more is Titans seem to get better as the game goes on, which I think is going to make them a wild card in the playoffs. When you're just in a regular season game and you're up big, and the team starts coming back, it's worrying. Yeah. When it's playoffs, lights are brightest, and if you get a slightly young, inexperienced team, you could just see heads go. Yep. And that's the kind of thing that this Titans I think will take advantage of. But against the Colts, they've covered this, and they just get better as it goes on, so I think that's what I'm less worried about, that garbage time factor. Not enough, I think, to put it in a big bet. This is, I think you don't want to lose your whole ACCA on this sort of a game, because that feels dreadful.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, Jags are bad, so...
Yeah.
Times
money line.
Yeah, easy, any day.
Everything.
Any day. Right then, so next game that we'll talk about is the Cardinals going to play the New York Giants. Now, funny enough, this is two teams with a lot to play for, which is weird considering the Giants are 5 and 7.
Let's go!
But the Cardinals are favourites, -3.
They got there.
Do you reckon that's fair? Do you reckon Giants could get the win?
Yeah. I do think the Giants can win this game.
No.
I think the Giants can win this game, and it seems like every week I've been since week 5 I've been going, oh, this Giants defense is starting to play a bit better, and they're starting to look good, and they're not a good defense by any stretch of the imagination in terms of talent, but they're a defense that it almost feels like there's a bit of the underdog mentality, and there's a bit of the what have we got to lose here, and they go out and they play aggressive football, and that's what I like about this Giants team at the moment, is that there is, now that you've got there's light at the end of the tunnel, we're in a terrible division, and we could win this at we could win this at 7-9.
Yeah.
All we've got to do is go out and play the absolute hearts out. I think there's a chance the Giants can do it. That being said, pretty much every position on the board, given our injuries and stuff like that. I mean, we've not got our quarterback starting. We've been missing our star running back all season. The O-line is still not what we want it to be.
One way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's kind.
I mean, I still think we've got all sorts of questions at receiver. Our tight end is one of the most talented in the league, but he can barely ever stay on the field. So, there's so many questions. And then you flip that over to the Cardinals, and you've got one of the most promising young quarterbacks in the league who's healthy, avoids hits relatively well, and just finds the end zone. You've got the best receiver in the league, and in my opinion, one of the best football players in the league in DeAndre Hopkins. You've probably got the best number 2 in the league in Christian Kirk, in my opinion. I think as an all-round receiver, he's good enough to be a number
Very
1.
bold.
I think he's the best all-round number 2, just in terms of how good he is. He's in any one stat, he's probably he's not as fast as Calvin Ridley, or he's not as great on the deep ball as Ridley. There's a number of other guys.
So Calvin Ridley's better.
Calvin Ridley's a very good player, but I think as an all-round,
I say better. Yeah.
I don't think Calvin Ridley's better.
James Prochet? Kirkle?
Shut up.
Chase Claypool?
I think the offense.
That's a. We're putting this to
No,
the
it's
test
too
now.
early for Chase Claypool. It's too early for Chase Claypool. I tell you what, I will
Kirk
give you
is-
Tyler Lockett, maybe.
So he's not.
Nah,
But
I don't know. I take Ridley over Lockett at this point. Lockett disappears too often.
Yeah.
Kirk.
We're getting sidetracked,
sidetracked.
but
Yeah, we are.
I
Hold him
disagree with you
conversation.
about
I
Christian
think
Kirk.
the Cardinals' offense is just so stacked and got such great playmaking ability that although the Giants' defense will be able to disrupt them, don't think it will be enough. And I just don't have confidence in this Giants' offense. I think realistically at this point the offense is the issue. Might be a different story if Daniel Jones was in there and he was running the ball a bit more, able to play.
Yeah.
But I think Colt McCoy, whilst I think he's good backup, kind of struggling. He's not got a great supporting cast, and it's been only his second start. You can't expect him to go out and beat a team who are potentially going to be a real contender in the playoffs.
I don't know what to think about this Cardinals team, because I think we've said it quite a few times that they're well coached. But I don't know if you guys have seen this. I saw it go around on Twitter earlier today of Hopkins' sort of route tree from the last 3 weeks. What are they doing with him? I feel like they're not really utilising him. It's very basic. It almost looks like if you told me it was Jerry Jeudy's or one of these rookie receivers, I might believe you. I don't know. I feel like there's something not clicking, and they're maybe trying the wrong things to fix this. Yeah. Because this team is still early days in this rebuild. There's pieces on the defense. There's guys stepping up. But it's still 1 year off being one of the worst in the league. Yeah. So for me, this is a game I'm staying entirely away from. I don't want to put money on this just because the Giants are playing up. They've got this weird style of football at the moment where it's just sort of aggression all round. It's almost like they've gone, you know what? I think about a month back they almost said, you know what, we could lose out. Trevor Lawrence, great. Or we could do this, and who knows, we might actually start winning some games. And I think the more they can get this going, and coming off the back of that win against the Seahawks, they're flying high. Whereas Cardinals losing to the Rams in division, suddenly they're looking at it like, right, so we're now 2 games off the Rams. We're slipping into that more wildcard talk. We're falling away from this. We're not hitting our stride at the right time of the season. That I'm staying comfortably on the fence entirely, I think, with this. I think I want to say Cardinals, and I think that's sort of what my brain's saying with this, but it's the gut feeling on this game is I think it's going to be a great game to watch. I could see this flipping back and forth a few times.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is maybe the first time, and this is the first time this season, as a Giants fan, this is the first time I'm genuinely excited to watch a Giants game because I'm starting to get confidence now that we can compete. And it's funny to say that because it has felt, when you go back and look at the scores of a lot of the Giants games, even early doors when we were losing to what now retrospectively is good teams, we were still keeping it relatively close. Like, we never went out and just got the brakes beat off of us. And that is, having seen some of the wins that we've got now, that makes me think, maybe we aren't terrible. Maybe we have got a shot. and maybe a couple wins, you sneak into the playoffs. Maybe you become the definition of that bogey team for someone who comes in and you get a wild card win just because a team
overlooks you.
Yeah, overlooks you. They don't prep properly. You come in, you play aggressive smash mouth football, and you shock the world.
I think a player that's got to be mentioned as well for you is Gorman. Back.
Yes, when
he's putting the team on his back. The last few weeks, he's always either clearing the 100 or getting a touchdown, doing what the team need him to do.
Yeah.
So I think this game comes down to him, Kyler Murray, whoever has that almost superstar level, that kind of they come out lights are bright, say, all right, I'm putting the team on my back today, sort of performance, we'll take it. And I think if they both do, Kyler Murray outdoes him.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
The thing for me. Yeah. But I think this game pretty much is, does Kyler Murray want it enough? Can he go out there and get it done? For me.
Oh,
this is where he proves, is he what everyone thinks he could be? And I mean, before the season, I thought he could be, but he's been hit and miss this year. Yeah. He's been, at times, he's looked what I expected. At others, he just hasn't. He's looked young still. So
short spread though, -3.
It is very tempting.
Very tempting.
You're.
I think I'm going Cardinals. I think I'm
going to bet against them.
I'm going to take my Giants.
Good, thank you.
I'm going to take my Giants at +3.
I mean,
because I think there's a good chance that the Cards do win this, but I think my Giants are good enough to keep this at a field goal.
And you beat the Seahawks last week.
Exactly.
Russell Wilson stopped him.
Yeah. Can't cook, so let's go.
There you go. God. I'm taking Cardinals. Right, let's move things on. Let's talk about the Vikings going to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Just a friendly reminder that there's only one win difference between these two teams, which I think is not something you want to hear at this point in the year.
I mean, we had the Vikings not exactly low, and no one had come into this year.
Yeah.
Injuries on the defense didn't help them.
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, is it misleading at all? The fact that
I think this Vikings team, on its day, is better than the record. They had a dreadful start, but since then, the team they are now, they're doing this the right way. They're hitting their stride as we get later in the year. And I mean, at any time you got a team with Dalvin Cook, on his day can take a team. Kirk Cousins on his day can carry a team.
Yeah.
We haven't always seen it, and there's been all the stuff about you get primetime Kirk Cousins, but there's they're a force to reckon with. They're putting wins up when they need to. The interesting thing about this game for me, obviously, Bucs side of things, I think 79% chance of playoffs still, where we sit now. If we lose this, it's 53.
Ooh,
yeah.
This game is up there with, obviously we've had it with the ones with the Saints were biggest of the year sort of thing. Now this one at this point, and I'd say even bigger than both of those was at the time, this is the biggest game we're going to play, unless we get obviously in the playoffs, then they're all big. But you know what I mean, that we have to be able to get it done now. We're coming off a bye. We've had time to prep for them. They're coming off a win over the Jags where they didn't exactly look great. They got the win, but they didn't look great. And I think this is the game where we see, will Arians and Brady work? Because this is the most eyes we've had on it. Even before the season, everyone's like, oh, it's going to take time to figure out. There's a bit of leeway with it. Now it's, do these guys even like each other? Are they both going to be there next year? Can they work together? Who's running the offense? What's going on sort of thing? They've got to prove it now for both of them. Because I think they're both going to have that little thing on their shoulder of which one of them would it be that gets pushed out the door? Because I think you ask various Bucs fans, you'll get different answers.
Yeah.
I think you ask like the smart, like the football minds, the analysts who know, you'll get different answers of what teams should do. So it's almost like they need to just kind of sit there and be like, right, let's get it together. Because there's potential. Who knows? Maybe say, right, both of you passed it, neither of you are doing it. Start again sort of thing. So this is a team that isn't that far off being in do we just start again territory. It's only because Arians lured Brady there that we're actually suddenly a relevant team. You take both of them away, we're back to the old Bucs. Yeah. And you miss playoffs this year, or you get into the wild card and get knocked out by a team like the Giants.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Because I think we're going to scrape in, and I think there's a chance we don't have a great seed. It's going to be, who knows who we're going to be playing.
You've also there's an element of the Bucs this year that every time you've played a good team, you've not looked good. And you've not had the hardest schedule in the world.
Yeah.
And you've got an easy run in now. Like you don't have between now and the end of the year. Theoretically, we should be looking at this, and you should be sitting at 11-5 come the end of the season. and you should be waltzing in. So I think this is. I mean, the Vikings might even be your hardest opponents that you've got left to play.
I think so. Got Falcons twice, Lions on Boxing Day.
Exactly.
So Falcons is a weird one though. In division, almost, I think it might even be back to back or close to it.
And they've had weird results as well. So you never know.
I think the Falcons are Falcons. Like you say, in division is always a bit of a weird one, but I think out of those teams, the Vikings are the best team.
Oh, no, definitely.
At the moment, they're trending the right direction. So you need the Bucks to look good this week. Like, if the Bucks don't look great this week, like, you could lose this game, win out, and you might... you're
maybe scrape in,
You might scrape in. Or you wouldn't be 8-8, sorry, that's if you...
10-6.
Yeah, so you'd be 10-6 and you'd get in. But then everyone would be going, you'd get a wild card game and you could quite easily lose. Because like I said, every time you've played a team that's got a winning record and is good, you've not looked great. I mean, even when you played us, the Giants...
Oh, we scraped through.
You scraped past. So I think we really need to see the Bucks come out and do well. Where I worry for the Bucks in this game is actually in their secondary, funnily enough. I know their defenses have been great, but that secondary, the way they play football... and the way that they are so aggressive and so ball hawking, and like we've seen Winfield Jr. I cried about him before the start of the season, said that I thought he was going to be amazing, and he has been.
Yeah.
But his style of football screams getting burnt for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns by Justin Jefferson. Because if Jefferson can get behind him, because they play that aggressive, they could give up some big plays. And
I don't think that'll be as much on him. I think it was Jamal Dean that got absolutely done by Tyreek Hill for a whole quarter.
Yeah.
Which I think we will either overcompensate, try and stop that, and Thielen has a day. I mean, Cook is an interesting one because our run defense is always solid. That's the one thing that's been. It's just the secondary's young, which I think a lot of people are forgetting points that they're going to have games where they get that confidence. Like against Rodgers, they get that pick, they come straight back and get another one. Everyone's like, they all start feeling themselves and thinking, this is it.
I worry Jefferson might be one of those guys, and Jefferson could turn into the receiver who, in a couple of years' time, is looked back as the steal of the draft. So when CeeDee Lamb went, what was he, 19 or something to the Cowboys, and everyone was going, how's he got there? I think in a couple of years, everyone's going to be going Justin Jefferson because the way that he's... Like, we saw it, first couple of weeks, he struggled, right? Like, you're a rookie coming into the league, but to come into the league and have... I think he's had like 6 100-yard games or something silly. And he is burning players down deep, and he's opening things up for Thielen. Again, to come in and do that as a rookie on a short year, and kind of hit those struggles and do it against some of the teams they've played against, is really impressive. Yeah, and that's where I worry that you guys could get burnt. And like you said, even if you don't, and you're worrying about that deep threat, you've got Thielen over the middle, who is still a premier kind of. It's
a dual sword, isn't it?
Yeah, I think. For me, this is a game, maybe more directed to the betting side, but I think that over at 52.5 is one I want to take.
Yeah.
For me,
100%.
and I'm going to be betting with the Bucks. I think the main thing I'm looking at here is, I think we've got a lot of guys that, when it gets towards December football, playoff football, as much as you can talk about the December Patriots, playoff Patriots, Brady. You get him in those moments. You get a lot of experience, but also I think guys like Devin White, he screams to me the kind of guy that you put him out there in a playoff game or a game where you say, all right, season's on the line, mate. He'll run through a wall, I reckon, for his team. And I think there might be a case of we're going to get burnt at points, and I think Jefferson does have a great game. But I think we're going to have enough that this team wants to come back. They're going to feel a bit embarrassed of what's happened before the bye. And I imagine now, I think it's also, we had a long stretch before that bye that I think was needed for this team. It was going the wrong way. I think we come out and it's like, right, okay. We're in December now. We're on a straight run through. The goal for this team, since it was put together, is Superbowl. Yeah. So now they're like, all right, we'll just look at this. We've got 4 games left regular season. And it's just game by game. So it's an 8-game season now for this Bucks team. And I think you get the characters that are there, the experience mixed with this youth that when you get them that confidence, have shown they can shut down one of the potentially best of all time in Rodgers. That's all you need to do in the playoffs a few times. And then you're in the big game. So that's, I think, the bit, and it all starts with this game that we have to come out and we don't have to look incredible doing it. Just need to get through and get that win done. Yeah. And then roll from there.
And with these concerns going to the playoffs about losing to the better teams, would you rather play a better team in this last stretch of games than have 4 or 5 quote unquote easier games? Would you rather have, say, like a Chief type team in there, or would you rather have the easier one?
Right now, I'd take the easy teams, purely because when we've said this in some of our team previews, we've said this a few times, when it gets to January, when it gets to the playoffs, everything else is forgotten. It's a different game. And suddenly you've got a guy like Brady who just seems to be, you put him in the playoffs and he finds a way to do it. Up there were guys like at points, Big Ben's done it. We've seen him do it. We've seen Rodgers do it in the past. Mahomes seems to be the new breed of that, where it almost doesn't matter. Like, they're going to find a way, they're going to elevate their game. So I almost think, just take this run, get back to playing proper football, work on those little things. Because even though they're not great teams that were playing, between one game of the Vikings, 2 against the Falcons, there's pieces on there that are up there in sort of the top 5, depending on how you grade it, top 5, top 10 at their position on those teams. Especially on the offensive side of the ball, which means this defense has got to show up week in, week out, which I think it gives the offense some time to get some confidence against some of these teams and their defenses, whereas the defense is still getting a decent test. Because they've still got to go through Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan. So I think it's almost they're winnable games, teams we can beat, but they're kind of balanced the right way for this team to work on what we need to.
Yeah, my concern was more about having that cloud over your head in the playoffs that you can't beat these sort of teams. And if you can get that out of the way by playing one of them in the next 4,
true,
maybe that cloud disappears.
I think I agree with you. I think it's a must-win game for the Bucks.
Well, I mean, this one is. But
I think the thing as well, I think the cloud is not necessarily the big teams; it's the big moments. I think it's those primetime games. So, because I mean, the Giants are not a good team, and they nearly took us in primetime.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the big teams. I think it's when we're playing. And I think that's the thing that we're going to have to find a way to get over, because that's really in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Oh, Super Bowl, baby!
Just the thing.
Right, let's move things on and let's talk about the 9:00 games. 9:05 kickoff. Sam, stay quiet for this one just for a couple of minutes.
Oh,
the Jets
just realised what this
are going in to play the Seahawks. The Jets, Matt almost beat the Raiders last week.
Yeah.
But some dodgy play calling, which followed
I've got a bit
second
of a theory on this one.
Well, go on before I go
let
on.
Matt go.
Yeah, because you're not going to be quiet for about 10 minutes when this
I'm going
happens.
to go grab a pint and
I might have to properly edit for once and actually, cut things about, because this is going to.
We should put you on a timer. We should put it like a minute timer.
Actually, I'm going to set a clock for you when this comes. But right, so this Jets Raiders game, I have a weird feeling. This is a coaching staff that I think knows they're gone at the end of this year. I think there is no way any of them can expect to still be around. It's a Jets team that suddenly we're in a spot where I think they're trying to, in some games, play well enough that you can't say, they're just not trying. That suddenly the Raiders had a bad day and they're like, hang on, we might win. That maybe they just made that call. One, Gase, headset off. Plausible deniability. DC, now sacked, makes the call of, we'll all out blitz. Yeah, why not? What could go wrong? They lose. They keep the Trevor Lawrence pick. I think for me, this is, we've said it all year, they're tanking. What bigger call could you make in a game you're about to win against a team that you know has got one of the fastest players in the league and a guy in Derek Carr who can put it where he needs it to get that done?
They're tanking.
For me, I would genuinely not be shocked if in 10 years it comes out and it's like, I made that call on purpose.
Yeah.
We knew what we were doing. We know we're getting sacked in 4 weeks, and you know what? I want Christmas off. I've got paid out of my contract. I'm gone. I can put my feet up now.
I think he'll only say that if it's a dynasty and this tanking works out for them.
No, that's what I mean. Trevor Lawrence in 10 years, you'd have to be. I know it's the Jets, and they seem to Jets everything up, but he looks like he could be the kind of guy to turn a bad franchise around if it is a complete clear out, which.
He's certainly got it in him. Right,
let me get the timer up.
And you have, how long are we saying?
I'm going to give you 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Okay.
And we'll sit here and we'll just...
Okay.
So, you're on the clock.
First of all, I don't think this is a game that was lost because they're tanking. Because I believe, yes, they're tanking, but I don't think that means that they don't go out and try to win every game. I think it's one of those ones where they go, where the front office has gone, right, at the end of the season, we're cleaning house and we'll deal with where we're at. Because I think these are still guys that go out there, they're competitive. You've got 53 men on that roster that are all amped up, get paid a lot of money. At the end of the day, no one in the NFL wants to go 0-16. No one wants to be that guy. Sam Darnold doesn't want to be the quarterback of the team that went 0-16 and are considered the worst team of all time. No one on that defense does. And they played a good game of football. They played up. That's the best game of football, I think, defensively at least, we've seen the Jets play. They gave themselves a real shot to win that. I think there are 2 factors that lost them that game. I think Greg Williams is fundamentally a very aggressive and egotistical person. If you go back
Very
to
true.
when we've seen him on Hard Knocks, he was just, he's one of those people you just look at and you think, I would hate to work anywhere near you, because you're just all about yourself. All you care about is being able to turn around and go, look how great I am, and let's hit them hard. He's the kind of guy that 15, 20, 30 years ago, however long ago that they were, he was the defensive guy in the locker room who was handing out cash bonuses to players on his team for injuring other players. It's just aggressive. I think
Lovely chap.
Is that correct? Is that
there has been
for him individually?
I can't say for him, but
allegedly
he is of that old
Allegedly.
school.
That's what he's putting that. Allegedly.
He is of that old school aggressive. He's very egotistical, and I think that was a play call that he made because he wanted to make a statement. We've played an aggressive game of football. We've played aggressive defence that they played all game, and I think he wanted to bring the house and go out on just a whack and a boom kind of aggression, right?
Yeah.
Now, this also shows Adam Gase's complete and utter incompetency as a head coach. You do not take... Your job as a head coach is not to run the offence. It is not to run the defence. It is not to be a play caller. Your job as a head coach is ultimately to take accountability for everything and manage a game. And that is not what Adam Gase did. If Adam Gase had been doing his job, he'd have heard that call, which may be one of the worst defensive play calls in history, to bring 8 on the final play of a game. He'd have heard it and he'd have said, no, we're not doing that. Time out. We've got one in the bank. We're going to finish the game. We're going to kneel it out and we're going to win. Does he do that? No. That is completely on Adam Gase. Yes, it wasn't him that made the play call, but as a head coach, Buck has to stop with him. So I appreciate that Williams has got to go and that was terrible, but that is just as much on Gase as it is on Williams. Get Gase out.
He's gonna be. We've been at a resolution. Of this
I was gonna say
since about week 4,
and makes me so angry.
Right, you're done.
You're done.
So we've been at that since about week 4. That Gase is gone. He is gonna go. It's just the easiest way to say without we're tanking to put yourself in that spot. It's a team that's completely lost. Leave them with a head coach that's not going to try and I think isn't capable of fixing it.
I still don't believe though that on that situation that a team deliberately gives that
No,
up.
potentially not. That's what conspiracy. Like
allegedly.
It's a bit of fun. Yeah, allegedly. I like that. I think for me though, there's got to be a part of it where that's a play call that you need everyone to be bought in on.
Yeah.
I think if a team, I don't know, that's well coached, that thinks their defensive coordinator, I don't know, he's likeable. There's a bit of a bond there between him and his defensive unit. He says, right, last play of the game, we're going to bring the house, go out there and get this done. And they go, right, we'll run for a wolf, you will do it. Whereas I reckon when they heard that call, there was people on that defense going, what? And they weren't bought into it. And they would have, obviously, they're NFL players, they're going to give their all every snap. But psychologically, you can think you're giving your all, and then there's giving your all. Where and I think that's the issue, is that to pull off that play, your team has to be absolutely just like bought in and ready to bring 110% to it, not just enough to, because at this point as well they're just playing out to the end of the season.
8.
Exactly, that's what I mean. But maybe it's just not 8 motivated men.
Oh
it didn't look like it. So, but
to get back to the game,
yeah,
what
I think.
happened to 3 men deep and protect the sticks?
So I think in this game, you've got the Jets coming off the closest they'll get to a win this year, and maybe even the start of next season. Who knows what we're going to see from them? Who knows how they're going to Jets it all up. Against the Seahawks team coming off a loss to the Giants, and another game from Russ where you go, is that the league MVP? Really? Because for me, he's not at this point.
He's not.
He can't be. Like, he was, there was a phase where he was playing well enough to, but I think he was just playing above. He was having a career year, and he couldn't even finish it as a career year for me. Yeah. And I think this maybe is one of, I don't know, who knows, he could come back at any point as Russ and put together a whole season of that. But I think this was the year where there was going to be the most behind it. Because I think now if he starts next year the same, everyone's going to say, it's not going to keep happening. And I think maybe this might be his best shot at an MVP blown. Because it's going to start to become, the more DK Metcalf looks good, the more it starts to be like, well, hang on.
It's this guy.
It's DK.
Yeah.
DK is just incredible. So this is a Seahawks team that need to just get it right. And they're kind of wavering at the wrong end of the season. And Russ isn't looking great at the wrong end of the season. Like, I think they'll make it in. They'll be in that playoff unless it completely implodes over this last 4 games. But I'm not betting anywhere near this game. Because at minus 13.5, the Jets seem to be close in games.
The Jets are covering spreads at the moment.
They're weird. And I was saying this, I think, when we watched, I just don't trust it. No matter really who they're playing, they're in and around games, but not, apart from Saturday or Sunday, not really competitively. They just sort of hang in there and do enough to not be completely embarrassed. Against a Seahawks team that have got all the motivation they could need. It's teams on completely different ends of the sort of spectrum here for where they're going this season. So the Seahawks should win it, but I'm not going to bet on it. I'm going to stay away from it. And if the Seahawks, potentially, who knows, come off this with a loss to an even worse New York team, they've just lost to one.
Question marks.
Who, I mean, bigger than question marks.
But I think realistically, we're taking them. I think we probably all agree.
Yeah.
Money line Seahawks. Yeah.
I agree with Matt. I'm not taking the spread, but that is just because the Jets seem to be covering spreads recently. And on the flip side, I'm not going to take the Jets with the spread because we all know they're completely capable of completely falling apart and losing by 30.
Yeah. It's hard to disagree with that. Maybe watch how the spread moves throughout the week, but yeah, I think I'm with you boys as well for that one. But let's shift things on and let's talk about the Colts going to play the Raiders. We sort of covered the Raiders a little bit there because obviously they played the Jets last week. Strange result, but the spread is minus 2.5 in favour of the Colts. Do you reckon that's fair?
Yeah, I think that is
rightly
placed.
With the way the Raiders have had, you had one of Derek Carr's worst performances 2 weeks ago that he's had in his career, and then he comes back this week. He doesn't have a terrible game, I suppose, in fairness, and statistically. But you're playing against the Jets, and you didn't look good, and that worries me. And the fact that it's gone that close to the Jets, and then you were gifted a win, like they should not have won that game, worries me. As opposed to a Colts team that I still think are a very good team. I think they're well coached. I think they've got a good run game. I think Philip Rivers is they're scheming very well around what he can do, what he can't do. Michael Pittman Jr. is starting to look like a really good second round pick.
Stepping up.
They're getting the ball, and I think the Colts defense is just going to be too much for the Raiders, really.
My issue with this game, and it's the Raiders are becoming a team that I maybe in this John Gruden era going to start to become my team. I just don't want to put money near because. And they're an enigma of a team. They'll have a game where they just come out and you're like, oh, they're legit. Yeah. Like, they're a team. They could go far with this. And then they have another game like the one against the Jets, and we've seen it 4 other times. You just think, what is going on there? But the problem is there doesn't really seem to be any consistency to it. It's very erratic. It's 1 week or maybe 2 in a row. You're like, here we go. And then the next you're like, what's happened here? Yeah. So for me, against a Colts team that at points have done similar, they seem to be getting into it, but they got blown out by the Titans 2 weeks ago. And that's a similar kind of team that, maybe with the Raiders, they can come out, get up, and just have a day where that whole offense is feeling themselves and feeling good. Yeah. Similar thing could happen. Yeah. So, I'm going to lean on the Colts just because the better team. I would say across the board. If you put them right next to each other, they are the better team. They should be getting the win here. But it's just two teams that they coin flip about a lot. Yeah. Between what you see from, I don't have confidence in either to on any given day bring their best. Yeah. It seems like it's almost kind of genie in a bottle. Occasionally I'll just go and be like, oh, hello, we're playing football today. And then other times it's like half of it's not there, and makes me nervous for both of them, like, because they're around that playoff hunt. If they get there, are they going to be the kind of team that either just it all goes wrong week the first time they play in the playoffs and you think, oh, they shouldn't have been there? Or are they going to manage to have 2 great games in a row, the hype builds, and then they just get crushed? Yeah. And this last 4 games, to me, I think both of them need to establish consistency.
That was the big word for me that I was thinking about when you were saying that then. It's just the inconsistency. I mean, for the Raiders, it seems to coincide with Derek Carr just having bad games as well. So, and that for me is just a big influence in backing the Colts in this one. But of course, Josh Jacobs might be back for this game. You know, he went off injured, I think, in the Jets against the Jets and missed a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. Does he make a difference? Hard to tell. Should be big, but again, Raiders inconsistency. So Colts at minus 2.5. I think I'm taking that as well. Yeah. But let's shift things on once again, and let's talk about the Green Bay Packers going into Detroit to play the Lions. Detroit gave up 390 total yards to the Bears, and that's with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Is this a chance for Aaron Rodgers to put up big numbers again? Yep. big numbers.
Yep.
Big numbers.
Massive numbers,
God,
James.
where do we stop?
But I think this was a game as well against the Bears that I don't think the Lions win in other weeks. This was new or change of era. Your head coach has just been sacked. We talk about, you see it in English football all the time over here.
Yeah.
And it seems this season we're seeing it in the NFL. You change your head coach, there's just that instant uptick. And I mean, as well, it's Matt Stafford with a comeback.
Yeah.
How many times has he done it? It's how he seems to get his wins, and it's pretty much a Lions game. Don't watch the first half.
Yeah.
It's all going to happen in the second. What you actually need to see, and I'm not reading much into that one over the Bears, and that's sort of why I think I'm feeling different about them going into this week. Is that I think that loss was less on them and more on just the Lions playing up and just mentally being in a new coach kind of game. But I think they could be in whatever situation they like, really, this Lions team against this Packers team. It's just they're at different points.
They're going up against a guy who's probably going to win the MVP of the league if he keeps playing like this. Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind. He's got Devontae Adams, who's playing the best football of his career at the moment. They've got a good stable of running backs. The offense is clicking just on all cylinders. And I don't think the Lions will be able to keep up. And I really think it's as simple as that. Is this Lions team will not be able to keep up with this Packers offense.
Yeah. Easy as.
Yeah.
Easy as.
Easy as that.
It doesn't really matter if DeAndre Swift is back either, because Packers' run defense is
The
brilliant.
script's going to be wrong for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. The only way, and I mean, I think the Lions have the defense to do it. We've seen the recipe for beating this Packers team is you've got to come out and throw Aaron Rodgers off early.
Yeah.
You've got to bring the pressure to him, and you've got to pick him off a couple times and get him doubting himself, because that Bucs game, I'll go back to it quite often, but he looked lost.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. And the
But
Lions,
ain't easy.
the
The
Lions
tricky thing
can't.
with Rodgers, though, is it is so hard to do that because he is
elite. He's potentially the best.
I mean, in terms of turnover percentage throughout a career, for someone who's had a career as long as him, it's insane. He does not turn the ball over. So I mean, that game, in my opinion, was just a once in a 100 kind of game for Aaron Rodgers, where he throws a couple of picks. Like, he's the kind of guy who goes 2 seasons and only throws 3 picks. So to do 2 in one game is very out of character, and he's just playing so well. And I don't know, I listen to a lot of the podcast, the Pat McAfee show podcasts, and he goes on there every week.
Love listening to
every
that.
single week you listen to him, and he just sounds like he's enjoying himself, and that team is bought in. Yeah,
it's interesting because when he talks, everything is almost very methodical. It's not monotone because that has negative connotations to it, but just the way he talks is almost like he's
calm.
It's just a bit like it's just a bit of a machine in how he thinks. It's just all very just logical, and you can think that's why he is how he is on the field. And you can put him in those massive moments, the Hail Mary sort of moments or stuff like that. And you can now, from just listening to him talk so much, you can see why he does it.
Very calm,
is he doing enough for you to take that -7.5?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If they can do that with the Bears.
I think the offense is that good. Yeah. And
better offense, better defense.
Yeah, I just don't like the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. I think as well.
Young corners. I just don't think they're playing well this season.
Especially defense.
20 Lions fans out there. It's not that I just hate the Lions.
He does a
bit. Keep digging. That's not what you tell us every Sunday.
We're
not allowed to watch Lions games in the house. It's horrendous.
Banned. hate Detroit as a place as well. I don't know what you said.
That was a famous quote from Sam. That one.
Don't like the people.
Don't know what you're saying.
Also, shout out Pat McAfee if you're listening.
Call the show, mate.
Right, let's switch things up. Let's talk about Washington football team going in to play the 49ers. First of all, off the bat, shout out Alex Smith. Guy's a trooper. Blood dripping out of his boot, of his cleat, of course the other leg.
Thankfully, the other leg. When I first saw that, I was like, I hope that's not the right one.
Yeah.
But this is a good chance maybe for Washington to push on in the NFC East, do we think?
I think they do. This is, again, we've spoken about this quite a lot now, and I think psychology at this point in the season is so important.
Yeah.
And this is a team coming off a massive win against a Niners team that is just lost. We said they can play for pride and play to show who they're going to be. But I think coming off a loss to a team like the Bills, and I don't know, it didn't really look like a team that was fighting that hard to show what they still are. It looks like a team that's kind of like, all right, next year.
Yeah.
And whereas this Washington team, it is all to play for. And I think the NFC East is known as one of those that the rivalries just almost seem bigger. In that it seems everything it's so
it's
just
old tradition, it's a lot of traditional.
It dates back,
and the thing with this game, which worries me is Washington against the Steelers. The Steelers, basically, what I've been saying for weeks about the Steelers, what bit them is their inability to run the ball. They just can't run the ball. They're giving it to multiple guys. They've got no answer running the ball. And when you get to a point that you can figure out how to stop a team, I mean, the Washington defense on the weekend, they literally that running game, they figured it out from play one, and I think they let up like less than 40 yards rushing all game or something.
Monster,
they just went, no, you're not running the ball. And the second that you stop a team from running the ball that aggressively, it's just like, right, well, you can't run it, so throw on us. And it doesn't matter how bad of a defense or good of an offense you've got. If the only thing you can do is throw the ball, it makes it much harder to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So I worry this week that with the 49ers having a much more efficient run game and a much more creative run game, that maybe the Washington football team won't look as good. And I think the Niners will take this game. I think they do win it. Yeah, I just think it becomes a bit harder to scheme. And I still really like this Niners team. They've just been so beat up with injury. And they have pulled out these performances. And this Niners team, for me, is one of those teams that one week we play really well, the next week we play really bad. And it seems that every episode of this we do, we're flipping on them. Oh, they had a really good outing next week, so we think they can beat this team. And then they go and get destroyed and they don't look good. And then we flip. Whereas this Washington team, I think that it was kind of, they've got a great D-line matched up against a team with a terrible run game, which is just kind of the perfect storm to just a really well-suited team to beat the Steelers. Now, I don't necessarily think that means the Steelers are any better or worse than we thought they were. It's just that we know the Steelers have no run game and they need to fix that before January because it's already been shown this is how you beat the Steelers. So they have to fix that. But I don't necessarily this win suddenly makes Washington a good team. I think it just means they're a team that are well suited to beat the Steelers.
It's like a jealous Giants fan, mate.
That's exactly what I think is happening here.
Jealous Giants fan, I think.
This is a bought-in Washington team for me.
Yeah.
They believe in Alex Smith now, and I think he's starting to find his. That's a really bad choice of words, but find his feet again in the NFL. I did not mean to do that one, but you know what I mean. He's starting to settle back into the NFL. Is what the word I mean there. And that's dangerous for me because he is a good quarterback on his day and a guy that can take his team far enough, and especially in this NFC, he can get them to that playoffs. If the defense also gets there, and we've said it, there is enough pieces there, and Chase Young, he's good enough that he can lead this defense to it. For me, they're turning the corner at the right time, I think, and there's been a lot of. I think if you put Alex Smith in from week one, they're a game or two clear in this NFC East for me.
Maybe.
And I think this is it's the right script for this game for me. It's enough of a challenging team for them to play and beat themselves again and keep themselves sort of playing against tough teams because the 49ers, they are well coached. There's still pieces there you've got to properly play around, but not quite what they were. And I mean, talking bet on this, +5.5 for Washington. Yes.
I'd take that every day.
Yes, please.
Take that.
Like, I'm happily taking that because I think I would take a money line for me in this one. I'm liking this Washington team going forward, and it was getting into that season. It's a hunch of maybe they are well beat to beat the Steelers, but they're better than we give them credit for. Yeah. I think this Washington team, they are not as far off.
And so is the whole NFC East, am I right?
No, but I think these guys are above. Give Alex Smith a bit more time to get back into it and gel a bit with, Terry McLaurin and
McLaurin looks good.
Scorer McLaurin, he's out there, he's getting points.
Yeah. And again, if they can get there, and there's just an old head in Alex Smith, get him to the playoffs, and you put him in the playoffs, and he might think, this could be my last shot at this. Yeah. You know what? Let's just go out there. He'll be there like, you know what? Exactly, nothing to lose. Let's just go for it. If you get a team with that mindset, with players like Chase Young in there and Terry McLaurin, that are young guys that say, all right, suddenly they can take it to anyone, I think.
You'd love to see it. Shout out comeback player of the year, Alex Smith.
Oh, he's got to. I said it early in the season, but he's got to be.
Yeah.
There's no one else at this
point. He's
point.
looked incredible this year, all things considered. So shout out to him, definitely. But let's keep things moving and let's talk about the Falcons going into play the Chargers. Now, the Chargers didn't score any points in Week 13. Can they score at least, I was going to say one, that'd be a 1 point safety. 2 points this week?
It's probably a team. I think it's a team that's checked out, right? We mentioned it earlier. Anthony Lynn basically came out and said to the team before the game, season's done, we're over. The team's checked out. They've got a lot of them. The way they looked against the Patriots, you could tell they weren't playing for anything. You could tell that some of them were just done. They were ready. They were in off-season mode. So I think that against a Falcons team that I feel now that they've kind of got rid of their coaching stuff, they feel like a lot of those players will have something to prove to the new coaching staff that I need to be on this roster going forward. So I'm taking the Falcons here. I'm taking them at 1.5. The thing I would like to see in this game, I think, will be as a prop bet, is I think there could be a lot of passing yards in this game. I think Justin Herbert's still got a lot to prove, because there's a good chance that Anthony Lynn is gone after this year, which is a shame, because I think that he had quite a bit of potential. I'd quite like to see him stay and give him a year, give him a shot, because the first half of this year, everyone was saying, the Chargers, they're a team that could quite easily have a winning record at this point. They've just been on the wrong side of coin flips. Yeah. And now down the line, we're like, they've lost a couple of really bad games that they shouldn't. But I think this is quite an easy one for me. Taking the Falcons at 1.5, and I like a lot of passing yards, and I quite like the over of 49.5.
Yeah, I think definitely this over. I think this is going to be it should be a shootout of a game.
Yeah.
And the Chargers, they're just on the wrong side of games this year, and I think that's going to be weighing on them mentally anyway. You think Anthony Lynn coming out saying, we're done, pack up sort of thing almost, we'll go out there, we'll put a team out there, but we ain't playing for anything, we ain't coaching for anything, sort of feeling, against a Falcons team that are trying to turn that corner and get the psychology right for next season, and kind of set it as, we can win games, we can pick it up, this is what we can do, we're going to build on that on the off-season, come in and say, right, we're not out of the NFC South, similar to what the Panthers are probably going to try and do as well, and say, right, this isn't a 2-team division or whatever. So I think, the Falcons will take this as a win. I think the interesting thing for me is just what we're going to see from Herbert. Because this is the first game I think we've seen that properly makes you think, that looks a little bit Drew Lock-esque of, because he's looked good, and I think he's done enough now that he's coming out there, he's top of the depth chart going into their first game next season, through to probably bought himself half a season, I'd say, next year to see what you've got, if it is even a new coaching scheme there. But you need to be able to show that you can bounce back from it, and that it wasn't just you came in under a weird circumstance, had a good game, and said, all right, I've got some confidence, I'm going to play. You need to be able to go out there and you need to try and prove that you can, in a shootout, outdo Matt Ryan, which easier said than done.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think limit the turnovers. I think this game for him needs to be sort of a 3-touchdown, 1 turnover sort of game. I think he's going to throw the turnovers. Yeah. He's young, and it's just the way he plays. He puts the ball in places to guys who, the receivers he throws to half the time, aren't that high on the depth chart sometimes. He really goes the big shots on, and you're going to have that risk that they're just not good enough to take on the DB they're playing against. So I think that's the kind of game he needs to have. If he does, you never know.
Maybe.
You never know. They might. It's got a coin flip element to me. If you have both these teams playing at their best, I couldn't call it. I'd say it will be a very exciting, very fun to watch, but very close game. I think you can see it in the spread.
Yeah.
But for me, I'll take the Falcons on it at -1.5. But if the Chargers do it, I won't be shocked. But I'll also be taking the over. That's my favourite bet of this game, is the over.
Yeah, over looks very tempting. I think
49.5.
Yeah. Interesting to see how Todd Gurley we get on this game as well. Chargers bad, against the run.
Knee might be banged up though. There's rumours that there's something going on with him. He didn't look himself at points on Sunday. That's the word. It is Todd Gurley, knee. Those 2 words.
Well, that's killed my vibe a little bit there.
I'm sorry to do that to you there, but on a 1-year deal as well.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's not good news, actually.
Not good. Yeah, Ito Smith looks good, though. When he has come in.
About time.
He is. Yeah, no, he's
looked poor.
He's left it late. He's left it late, but he's looked good this year. He's looked like he's running aggressively.
Yeah.
And what you want to see from a back, he's playing like a good back in the league. So I think.
Let me rephrase then. Ito Smith, watch out for him.
Exactly.
He might have a big day.
I think that could be a nice prop bet, Ito Smith, coming up to this week, depending on where they set that.
Yeah.
On his rushing yardage, but I think if you could get him around 60 mark.
I think it's doable, very doable. Yeah, that's what I mean. Chargers are bad against the run, so
exactly. Whoever, I wouldn't trust Gurley just because him and knee in a sentence during a week leading up to a game. No, thank you.
Yeah.
His backup, yes, please.
We'll take all of his shares, please. But let's keep it rolling, and let's talk about the Saints going to play the Eagles. Now, before we did this episode, I did my notes. I have the question: do we think that Jalen Hurts starts this game? Now, of course, news coming out today.
I bet you a tenner he does.
He is going to start this game. What do we make of that news off the bat? Really, where does that leave Wentz for the rest of his career, the rest of the season? Going back to what we said last week.
We've said a lot of Wentz. I think he'll get a shot somewhere else. He's
Yeah.
done enough in the league to prove that. How he
Big
do there
habits.
depends where he goes, and we don't know when that'll be. Obviously, I don't know the exact figures behind the contract, what year he becomes tradable realistically, but he will end up somewhere else. I think.
Yeah, 100%.
What the Eagles are doing is, all right, we took a guy in the second round.
Let's have a look.
Let's have a look, see what we've got. Nothing to lose.
Oh, it's a tough game to win.
They're
I was
not
gonna say.
exactly. This is one of the things you have it when rookie quarterbacks come in. You've either got that NFL meet Justin Herbert against the Chiefs,
Yeah.
or it's Justin Herbert meet the NFL and
Yeah.
playing the Saints defense. Oh,
Fourth best
that is
pass
a
defense.
brutal start. Because
Yeah.
if you're not throwing a pick, if you're getting the ball out, probably getting picked. If you're not getting the ball out in time, you're getting absolutely smacked down by that D line. It's
Yeah.
brutal.
I was going to say, I don't think it's really makes a difference if
No.
the Eagles start a quarterback.
It's
doesn't
a revolving door of an O-line.
As much as
Yeah.
I've said all year that Carson Wentz has had a bad year, and he has had a terrible year, and he has kind of, I think, shown that he is not what people maybe thought that he was after having a couple of good years
We'll see.
behind a very good O-line. I think you could, for this game especially, it doesn't matter who you start. You've got a O-line with more holes in it than Swiss cheese going up against one of the best defenses in the league, and you're starting a rookie who's never started an NFL game.
What do we think
This
happens
doesn't-
with this
doesn't-
spread?
Oh, I think
With Hurts coming, I think this swings because I was going to say -6.5 for the Saints.
I'll take that.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
That
It's
goes
got
up.
to move.
because
Yeah,
this
that's
sounds
got
like
to
this
move.
seems like the kind of game as well that the Saints can play around with as well. Right, we could try because we're going up against a team that is pretty bad, one of the worst teams in the league at the moment. We can try a bit more, experiment a bit more with Taysom Hill. Maybe we play a bit more. Would not surprise me if we don't see James Winston on the field this week in weird Wildcat Jameis Winston Taysom Hill packages. Just kind of playing with some things, like messing around, getting ready for the playoffs. Like Sean Payton likes to mess
potential.
around with things,
True.
and I think this is a week that by halftime game's over.
Oh
yeah, it's gotta be.
No doubt. Yeah, no.
I'm just uncertain if they do too much of that because obviously we're expecting Breeze will come back in, especially by playoffs, and be kind of in. I think Taysom Hill gets more of a share when he does. I think they'll still do what they've done for the past few years, but give him a bit more trust in Taysom Hill and that arm when they want to go deep,
Yeah.
because we know Breeze can't. But I think this is the time they've locked in that playoff spot. They know they're going to be there. Don't mess with anything too much, because that's the kind of thing where suddenly if you start trying to experiment, do different things, you can almost do that to your own detriment. And a few things don't click, and then suddenly people get a bit off, and you get to then you're calling your regular plays that used to work, and people are still a bit thrown off, like, oh, am I doing what I'm doing on that trick play, or how that you kind of just mess up time and things like that. I think this is a game that they'll just want to blow through, get through easy, get through with no injuries mainly, and just kind of move on and keep the momentum rolling. This isn't, I think, one of those ones where you want to mess around and try and experiment against a guy that's having his first start. We've seen Jalen Hurts, at college at times, it's electric.
Yeah.
For me, that's just not a guy you risk it against. The last thing you want is to be up by 2 scores, let's say, at the half, and you think, all right, we'll swap it about a bit, we'll put in someone like Jameis, we'll put in some subs, we'll just kind of move on to the next game, and suddenly Jalen Hurts comes out and goes, you know what, I'm playing for a job here.
Yeah.
No one expects
and
anything.
then it's a one-score game with 5 minutes to play.
Momentum swung.
Exactly,
as well.
and suddenly you lose this game, you go 10-3, you've lost to the Eagles.
And you've potentially lost your bye to the Packers.
Exactly.
Keep it
That's
safe,
the
keep it
problem.
simple.
I think they've got to play us. They're in a race against the Packers, and every win they can get is huge.
But before we move on, I think it would be important to say congratulations to the
Yeah,
Saints.
locking
as
it
they
up.
were the first team to secure playoffs for the year. So well done, New Orleans.
I don't know how it's going to do with the mic.
Yep, I was
Okay.
gonna...
Yeah.
Good luck in the edit on that one.
Lovely.
Yeah, well done, Saints. You've really proved your
And I'm
worth.
just not clapping the same time.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's,
We are so proud of you, New Orleans.
and now you sound like a jealous Bucks fan at this point.
All right, when the Ravens miss out, or when the team in the Ravens division locks it up, I'll get you to
Yeah,
clap for them, James.
Brands.
when the Browns lock it up, I can't wait to hear you
I
clapping.
spoke too soon because the next team that we're going to speak about is the Steelers. Facing the Buffalo Bills. Talked about it a little bit already. The Steelers lost to Washington football team last week. Do you guys reckon they're going to slip up again against the Bills?
I
here?
think they will.
Yeah.
I want to read something out here that I've saw on Instagram today that I found quite interesting.
Go on.
Just a way of talking about this Steelers schedule up until now.
Yeah.
So week 1, you beat Daniel Jones and this Giants team. Week 2, you beat a pretty injured Broncos team. Week 3, you beat the Texans. Week 4, the bye week. Maybe that hardest opponent of the season, having it all derailed and moved around a bit early. They beat Wentz.
Who can't?
Then, give them some credit, they beat the Browns, they beat the Titans, they beat the Ravens. Solid wins against big teams, fair play. Not going to take anything away from them there.
At that point.
They got past the Cowboys then after that. They got past the Bengals, then the Jags. They beat the Ravens practice squad.
Just.
Jason McSorley throwing a touchdown against them.
Threw it on a dime.
On a dime. And then they just lost to a team that don't even have a name. For me, this Steelers team are not as good as their record says. They are good. I'm not going to take that away from their defense, generational. But they're not as good as the record is.
Yep.
They played down to a lot of teams.
Yep.
And I think they've been figured out. And there was some tweets going around from players of, figured you out, sort of thing of,
Well,
they know what to
Chase
do.
Young said it. He
Exactly.
said they watched the Ravens play and they worked exactly from the Ravens doing what the Washington football team needed to do.
Exactly.
And they went and did it.
The Ravens figured them out. It's the same as the Titans figuring out the Ravens, and now the whole league's gone, there's the blueprint. And you've got Lamar Jackson saying the things of, they know what we're doing before we do it. I think the Steelers have got a similar risk. I think the defense can still make them competitive in all these games. That defense is too good for them not to go very deep this season. But when you're coming up against other good, you don't get to the playoffs without a decent defense. And if they all get that blueprint, this Steelers team could be in for, to put it in hockey terms, we had it with the Lightning a few years ago. You get to the playoffs as the best team in the league, an incredible team, a record-setting team, and it all just goes wrong because they know what to do against you.
This is what I've been saying for a couple of weeks, really, is they have no run game. When you are a one-dimensional team, this is the flip side of why coming into the season I was relatively low on the Titans, and I still don't think that the Titans are actually title contenders. They are a one-dimensional football team. I don't think the Browns are realistically title contenders because I think they're a relatively one-dimensional. I think
Got to keep Baker clean.
If you keep Baker clean, then you're not one-dimensional because he can do one very specific thing and he can do it very well. But there's a lot of
and celebrate really well if anyone saw that video.
Yes.
You've got to give him a shout out for that.
On the slide.
They're such offensively the Steelers at the moment are so incredibly one-dimensional. They cannot run the ball. If they can sort that out, and if they can maybe get a little bit more creative on the offensive side of the ball in the pass game, they've got the talent there to do it. I think they need James Conner back. Is he going to be back?
It's trending that way, I believe.
So
he's in contention
if he can get back for the playoffs, I would, as Mike Tomlin now, I would hold him off until maybe week 17, get him a game before the playoffs and try and have your full stable of backs. And I'd be working as hard as possible on that run game because I think if they can crack that, and if they can get to 75 to 100 yards a game rushing, suddenly much a different team, much harder to beat. I think the Bills will win this game, but the thing with the Steelers, kind of in response to what you said about going through that thing you found on Instagram, the thing that I care about, which is kind of the flip side to the Bucks, is where the Bucks, every time they've played someone that you go, oh, that's a proper team, and it was a conflict game, they came out on the wrong side of it.
Yeah, true.
At the end of the day, I care about those teams that I go, oh, right, what happened against the Ravens? What happened against the Browns? What happened against the Titans? The teams that they're going to be competing with in January and that are going to have winning records at the end of the year, and they came out on top. I'm going to allow them a loss to Washington because at the end of the day, we can sit here and debate all day. They've played this team, they've played that team, easy teams, easy schedule, blah, blah, blah. They were 11-0. They've lost one team to Washington. I still think they're the team to beat in the AFC. But I agree with you, because I was saying this 4 weeks ago. They have to sort that running game out because it's now been shown that at least one team in the league knows how to stop them.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing about this game. This is a good chance to test the blueprint.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is a great opportunity to test the blueprint. It's a good team. One
the
that on paper can beat them.
Josh Allen playing good football again.
Exactly.
I love his quote from this week as well, saying we're not here to be 9-3.
Yeah.
We want to keep winning. Like, we're not done now. We're not putting our feet up, and that's the mindset they need to have. It's good from him. I think he's leading that locker room And yeah, when they play at their best,
I think
they
the
are a
Bills-
good
Yeah,
team.
very good.
I think the Bills
Like-
win this game, and I really like them with the spread as well, +2.5. Like it's
Yeah.
basically a lean, so
Yeah.
I think I'd also quite happily put this in a lot of my ACCAs because I think this is the kind of game with Josh Allen playing the way he is that as long as he can not make tons of silly picks.
That's my concern though. Is Josh Allen could turn into a game that I quite potentially like the under on it, because you could see this Steelers defense do what it does, but then you could also see the Bills defense step up and say, all right, we're going to test the blueprint, and suddenly you've got Josh Allen just turn the ball over. You've got Josh Allen having one of those games that we've seen this season, because similar to what we said about Russ, there was a point early in the season like, Josh Allen MVP? And then since then, the second it seemed like his name was put there, there was all graphics made of him next to Mahomes and Jackson on their MVP seasons. How he was at those numbers, it's gone downhill, and there's been the Josh Allen kind of moments of that's the flaw of Josh Allen. That he could easily get rattled by the Steelers defense as any quarterback in the league could. They are such a good defense. So I think I as 46.5, I kind of like the under here, but there's always a risk when it's Josh Allen and Big Ben. That they just come out and say, all right, and they go score. Like they just go off against each other and say who's got the bigger arm, who can throw it better, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So probably avoiding that. They've only better play, so is that Bills at +2.5 because I think they're going to win.
Yeah.
Get them with extra points. Brilliant.
Yeah, I'll back that as well. I'll back that 100% of the way. Especially being a Ravens fan as well. Seeing the Steelers lose another game. Oh, you love to see it. Right, final game of the week, boys. Monday Night Football sees the Ravens going to play the Browns.
Must win.
Oh, this is a blockbuster of a fixture. AFC North matchup. Could be a playoff decider. Playoff wildcard decider, if you like.
Potentially both teams. This has such big implications.
Yeah, so it looks like Brandon Williams and Calais Campbell will be back on that
Ravens
line.
Huge.
A lot of players back.
Ravens win the game. Like,
back and rested.
I said this here before going into the Titans game. The reason I was so confident the Browns were going to win that is because the Titans were not good at pressuring the quarterback, and Baker Mayfield, when he's not pressured and he has time to sit back and make his decisions and kind of fire and play a bit more gunslingery, and he's very good, and he showed that against the Titans. But I think this Ravens team, if they've got their pass rush at full strength, then they have, and at the start of the season they showed it when they first played them, they do have what it takes to bring it to Baker and to kind of bottle up that run, at which point then it's going to be two teams that just want to run the ball, and I think the Ravens will do better. So I think the Ravens win this game. However, I still think that it would then be the Browns that go on and make the playoffs, and the Ravens would be more likely to miss out than the Browns at this point, because I think the Browns are maybe a bit better off this season, just because, like we said, I think everyone's figured out this Ravens team.
Yeah, better record as well at this point as well.
Yeah, exactly.
As we mentioned, of course, playing tonight, like we mentioned, the Cowboys, but better record at the moment as well.
That's it. They should get through this Cowboys game with a win. I think it's
Should
expected. And suddenly 7-5 is much better than 6-5. Like just the way it sounds and looks. So I think that they've almost got a game in hand, to put it in our terms. This Browns team, you can say the Ravens have figured out. Maybe the Steelers have figured out. The Browns team don't even have to figure out. Everyone knows. Just get pressure on Baker and then stuff the run.
Yeah.
Done. Like it's not that they're. I worry for them that they're going to get there and it's going to be sort of heartbreaking Cleveland sort of thing of they finally get into a game, they come up against a team that has the ability to do it and just get absolutely stomped out, and Baker gets embarrassed. And I don't know. I don't have enough trust in this, partly just because as well with Baker, you get him then. If let's say they get a win here against the Ravens. Say they get that done, people would be like, right, 10-3, this is it. We've been talking about the Browns for a few years now, it's going to happen. You start getting Baker in that mindset, you then put him in a game where he's getting pressure, he's getting shut down, he's throwing a silly pick. He is the type that will have that moment that you see it from players like Josh Allen trying to overcorrect. Jameis was a nightmare for it. Big Ben's done it at points in his career, just overtries and ends up making it worse, compounding on his own mistakes and getting them behind. And then you can't build that run, and you can't lean off the defense. But at the same time, if the O-line can do their job and keep him clean, and can keep Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb moving in the right direction, they are a team to beat, and they are a contender. Yeah, so it's in their own hands, but there is a definite blueprint to stopping them as well. Yeah. And it's an easier one to execute than on the Steelers and on the Ravens for me.
The other thing that's really interesting with this Browns team is like this kind of goes away from the game. Like I said, I already think the Ravens are going to win it. That's my pick and all that. But I just want to say this on the Browns in general is they've got a very kind of young, relatively inexperienced head coach, and this is his first year. They've got young players across the board. What the Browns have done in the last 2 years, 3 years since Baker came in has been nothing short, in my opinion, of really impressive. I mean, if we stop and we think now, right, the Jets. If someone was to say to you the Jets this time in 3 years are going to be staring down a 10-6, 11-5 record, you'd turn around and go, "Wow, what a job you've done to turn that franchise around." And the fact that Cleveland just perpetually had this just terrible culture, they couldn't find a GM, they couldn't find a quarterback, they couldn't find, really anyone. This is only the second time since this iteration of the Cleveland Browns has had a winning record.
Yeah.
And if they win tomorrow on Sunday, or Monday, whenever it is they play, that will then match their all-time best season for
impressive.
4 wins.
It is nothing short.
Which I think everyone gives Baker so much stick, right? But it's like he's come into an organisation, he's had multiple coaches. He's on his third head coach, multiple systems in 3 years, and he's taken a team that went 0-16, and he's now staring down the playoffs in 3 years, and they've changed the culture. So I actually think whatever happens from this point, this year was a win for the Browns. And I think going forward, if you can keep the culture in the building, whether it's Baker that's in the building, I don't think at this point matters. I think it's the culture. It's the fact that those Browns players, I think they go out and they expect to win now. They don't go out and just go, right, we're going to win one game in 3 seasons or whatever. Like, that culture is so important, and I think we've got to credit Baker for being a part of that, and just in general credit that organisation for finally being able to turn it round. Now, maybe they haven't turned it round, and next year they're back to their perpetual ways. But I have the feeling that this team isn't about Baker, which is what is brilliant. This team is about its defence and its run game, and it's made up. There are many pieces on it. It's not just a team that we've got a quarterback and fixed it. It's not like Kyler Murray comes in and suddenly you're a team that's gone from the worst team in the league to a team that can compete.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm quite as. I think for the Browns, if they don't make the playoffs this season, in like where we're sat now, the position they're in, it's a disappointment.
Yeah.
And even going back a couple of weeks,
I think kind of assuming at this point that they're going to make the playoffs.
The players that you've got on that team, and this is the difference for me between them and where the Jets are at, is there was points on that Browns team that even in their worst seasons, and a few seasons after one, they had so many picks, and they used them well, fair play. And through a few different coaches, they've managed to keep building, keep growing those players, growing the talent. They weren't at any point you'd say almost the quarterback away sort of thing. Because I think at this point, Baker is potentially what holds this team back. You put in a quarterback who can deal with some of the issues. That if the pocket starts to collapse a bit, he can deal with that scenario.
Yeah, of course.
I think if you swap the quarterback out...
If you put Kyler Murray on that team...
You put Deshaun Watson on that team.
Lamar Jackson.
Ooh.
Imagine. That's exactly any guy like that. Which is why I think the biggest thing for this Browns team is Baker. He is maybe he's the handicap, but he is what could hold them back. Yeah. He is the win-lose, and you can have everything you want around him. He's got that ability to completely just throw it all away. Yeah. That's my concern for him, and that's what bringing it back to this game. I always find it hard to trust the Browns in going into any game, and a healthy Ravens who have got a lot to prove against the Browns team who are where they want to be, but are now starting to get a ton of pressure around them and are young.
Yeah.
I like the Ravens, and I'm nervous for the Browns moving forward. That I think this is a season that's going to end in what feels like quite a Cleveland way at points. And just,
I think their season is going to get finished by an in-division rival.
Yeah,
because that's the one thing I'm thinking when you're saying all that is I'm saying again. Actually, I trust the Browns against most teams. The only games I've bet against the Browns this year have been in division games. Ravens, Steelers. I don't trust them against the Ravens and Steelers. Historically, they lose. Yeah. And again, that's one of the reasons I'm taking the Ravens this week.
Yep. I'd happily see it. That would really turn that on its head a little bit, that little second place battle.
Yeah, I'm sure
put some doubts in the heads of the Browns as well. They come off a big win against the Titans that was a big statement win, and they then follow it up with a Monday Night Football loss to the Ravens, who don't look like the Ravens of old and who everyone seems to know, you don't have to beat the Ravens.
Yeah.
Then a little bit. I think it's not. It sounds stupid to say because of where they've come from, but there is an alarm bells aspect of, can this franchise just get it done, or is it just going to be a thing of they've got all the pieces. There's so much talent there, and they're close, and then they kind of fumble it away.
I think they can.
Yeah. I want to see them do it.
Rams to win the Super Bowl.
Bold take, but overall, they're a million miles away from where they were a few years ago. So from that point of view, you love to see it. I don't personally, but you do love to see it as an NFL fan. But that's it, boys. That's all the games previewed.
All 16.
All
Big
16.
Week. Big week.
Put a shift in on that one, I think. I think we can all agree. So
when do we get our bye week?
We don't.
April.
So
Unless the draft gets moved about.
Oh, God.
It's a long way off. Spring football.
You guys seem like you're really enjoying it.
But unless you boys have any other points to raise, then unfortunately that's all we've got time for today. So as ever, be sure to head over to YouTube, go like, comment, and subscribe. And what's that, Sam? What else are they going to do on YouTube?
They're going to comment.
They're going to hit a notification
bell. The bell!
Come on, he wasn't even listening.
Also, actually,
he doesn't have a clue how any of that works.
If you're on your phone, you need to go into your settings to actually make sure you get the notifications, because you can press the bell, but if you don't have the setting to come up, then you won't get the notification.
Cheers, Dad.
So,
Sam's Tech Tips.
Do that.
Tech Tip Tuesday. There we go. Oh, Tech Tip Thursday. This comes out on a Thursday. A lot better, that one. Also, check us out on Instagram and Twitter. We are at the Brit Iron. Go get involved in the conversation on both of those platforms. But for now, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.